So yeah, we're on the right version there, and this is again, as I've said, it's more about you than anything else. So it's looking at your role and what your responsibilities are within the organisation that you're with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, you can I put on there, summarise the key aspects of legislation, regulatory requirements, and codes of practice relating to your own role and responsibilities.
Yeah.
Well, again, it's just knowing what the legislation is with regard to teachers in your position, what the regulatory requirements are, and any codes of practice. Now,
yes.
There's a section. It's the section with regard to these. That's in the ebook. Yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't actually say that, does it?
I just sort of winged that.
Yeah.
I did a bit of research and I looked at legislations and so on, and but I'll go back and have a look at the ebook. And
you know what? Sometimes that's the best way of picking the information up, because what happens with all this work, of course, is it's checked for any plagiarism at the end. It's always put in, so always put your references in.
Yeah.
What I tend to do is sometimes, if you can look at either a book or on the net, make notes from who you're actually researching. Make your own notes from who you're researching, and then write your piece from your notes.
Okay.
Works every time.
Because I have been doing that, but there's some things like when when you're explaining certain, like for a theories example, you're explaining them. Sometimes you need to use the same wording that they do.
Well, that's okay. As long as you've referenced it correctly, that's okay.
Yeah. Okay.
But for the bulk of your piece, obviously, if it's an explanation of something, then you can explain it better if you've made notes and just use your own words.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's two. Now, there are a whole host of those, and I'm just going to put that to one side again. Oops, and bring that back in. And go back from there. There we are. So on here, there's an ebook here. Yeah. We should all know. Yeah, ebook. It's 142 pages, by the way.
Okay.
Some of the sections on there, it will give you, if I come to them in a minute.
I came across Anne Gavel's.
Anne Gavel's stuff is pretty good.
Yeah, on the net.
She's not actually written anything for this particular course. It's a bit new. But some of her stuff is for petals and things like that. And actually, probably at a lower level as well. But quite a lot of useful information in there. And it covers a number of areas. So it's looking at learning goals, initial assessment, negotiating learning goals, planning inclusive learning, teaching and learning strategies, resources, communication, reflection, evaluation and feedback, sample type documentation. Yeah. Worth having a look at some of those, actually. Yeah. Looking at learning standards, tips for teaching, and teaching and learning resources. So I will jump back from there again because I want to have a look at something else.
Thank you.
There we are. I have something down here. Do you know, I thought I would have a problem. I've got my wrong glasses on.
You're like, why can't I see you properly?
That we can sort in a second. Oh, that's better. I'm thinking, why am I having a problem here? So I'm just going to look through this PowerPoint presentation.
Okay.
It's speeding up a bit now. Said he. Yeah, it's only short on this, but it looks at basically the level 5 key aspects of legislation, regulatory requirements, codes of practice relating to your own role and responsibilities.
Yeah.
Objection: discuss the impact of legislation and the codes of practice on the role as teachers, explain the importance of establishing professional boundaries, and reflect on your own learning. Yeah. So there are a number of things on there. There's legislation can put extra pressure on teachers.
Mm-hmm.
There are other people that you deal with all day in the actual staff themselves, yeah? And you've got to know who does what and what their responsibilities are as well. Obviously, to go for assistance if you need it, and also not to tread on people's toes if you are covering some similar areas, yeah?
Yeah.
So, what legislation impacts on teachers?
I looked at Prevent Education.
Well, there's a whole host here.
Yeah.
Employability Act, Employment Act, yeah.
And I think I looked at the Children's Act as well.
Yeah.
Focuses, yeah.
Prevent is the Codes of Professional Practice, the Equality Act, Health and Safety at Work Act, yeah. The Children's Act, Safeguarding, Sender, COSH. Not everybody will get involved with COSH, but certain people do. RIDOR.
That's the things to do with the cleaning equipment, isn't it? Is that to do with the? I remember this a little bit. Is it to do with cleaning equipment or?
No. This is the reporting of industrial diseases and dangerous occurrences.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
If something happens, what you've got to do nowadays, if there was an accident, it was obviously investigated. Something happened, somebody got hurt or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, if there's been a near miss, it's got to be reported.
Okay.
COSH is Control of Substances Hazardous to Health.
Yeah.
The Mental Health Act as well. And basically all those have some data protection, of course, have some impact on you as a teacher. Data protection, of course, what can I print copies of and what can't I print copies of? Yeah, what's allowable and what's not. So there's a whole host of things in there to look at. I'm not saying look at them all, but be aware of one of the things that, the things that will reflect on you mainly. Yeah.
Yeah. True.
Just being aware of those, you don't have to cover them all. Yeah.
Okay.
Where's it gone? Oh, there it is. So you've got the Children's Act, Safeguarding Vulnerable Adults, Data Protection, Equality Act, Health and Safety at Work Act, Copyright and Related Regulations Act 2003, and the Human Rights Act.
Yeah, I think I might have done something a bit naughty regarding the copyrights because I photocopied some assessments and then I was looking at them today and I realised at the bottom it says copyright, photocopying is prohibited.
Exactly. And the other things things that you perhaps don't immediately think about.
Yeah.
If I asked you to copy some documents, the children's names mustn't be in.
Yeah.
We revert to learner A and B or 1 and 2 or whatever you want to call them, but not by their names. And that goes to any pieces of script that you use behind it as well. So you can't refer to them in the script. So you refer to them as learner A or B.
Okay.
Yeah. So that comes under that act as well, but it also comes under the Safeguarding Children Act as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Not identifying them. Saying basically how much you know about this legislation.
Yeah.
Professional standards for teachers and trainers in education. So a few questions in your analysis at 1.3. Why is it important for teachers to understand the extent of their roles and responsibilities and establish clear professional boundaries?
Yeah.
Which of the following are a direct responsibility of the teacher in the higher education and further education and skills sectors?
Yeah.
So it gives you a list.
It would be bullying and low test marks, wouldn't it? For
It's
those.
what, sorry?
Would it be bullying and consistently low test marks?
You've got, well, a number of things on there that you would look at. Consistently low test marks are one, and bullying is another, but certainly poor attendance you would have to report at some point to somebody.
Okay.
And again, what guidelines should you follow to maintain appropriate boundaries within learners, with learners, yeah? Not
because
just...
I asked the school for an organic hierarchy chart, which they didn't have. So I created one. I looked online and I looked at
exactly.
So I just made one.
Yeah, they're easy to do. Just put something together for them.
Do you know what? They're easy to do, but figuring out the boxes to go around them, that took me a few minutes.
Yeah.
And then I did like an explanation of the different roles. In those within it, saying that what does each person do.
Sometimes you don't get the same. For instance, what guidelines should we follow to ensure and maintain appropriate boundaries with learners? Well, that doesn't really apply to little children. There are other things covering that area, but when you've got, say, you may have an apprentice at sort of 19, coming up to 20, and the lecturer may only be 24, 25. You know, there's personality issues there as well that you need to look at and be aware of, obviously, as well.
Because we used to, in my TA course, the majority of the students were older than the tutor, so for her job was up with getting herself being taken seriously as well.
Well, that works. Yeah, it works the other way as well.
True.
I don't find many of my students older than me, so I don't have a problem.
There will be one soon.
Aye. So your aim is to examine the aspects of legislation, regulatory requirements, codes of practice relating to your own role and responsibilities. And the objective is to discuss the impact of that legislation and those codes of practice on our role as teachers, and reflect on your own learning as well, It comes back to the learning cycle. There are a number of people that claim this one. Kolb is one of them. But there are a number of other, you've probably done that in Unit 3, you see. Yeah. So it's looking at identifying the needs. This is your initial assessment process. Plan the learning is your individual learning plan. Deliver and enable that learning to happen. So then assess the learning and quality assurance and evaluation.
Okay.
So those are the processes that really go through all learning. Yeah, it doesn't matter what level it's at or which it's at. Some form of that will be done. As you say, that it doesn't actually follow initial assessment, but it is an assessment of whether, to check where learning's occurred. So identifying needs is initial assessment, and planning the learning is learning plans. Delivering and enable the learning comes under then schemes of work and lesson planning. And then assess the learning when it's done. Has it achieved what it set out to do? Are there parts for referral? Is it okay? And then when you've agreed with that as a tutor or an assessor, you've then got to pass that on for it to be evaluated to make sure that you've done a fair assessment of the work across the group. So that's never mind. Again, describe points of referral to meet the needs of learners. This is 1.4.
I looked at this and it confused me a little bit, but then I sort of figured it out. What I did was that on the points of referral, first I thought it was just talking about SEN referrals, but then I realised that maybe it's actually talking about looking at the looking at your assessments and initial assessments and so on, and working through how you would support someone, and then maybe touch upon SEN at the end.
Yeah, that's true. But also, you've got which piece of legislation do you most need to research and understand?
Okay.
There are a number, and it depends on where you are in the. It may be if you're in FE, it'll be different than where you are. So there will be. Again, I come back to what I said before. It's all about you. So you will actually refer that back to what you do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why it's shut that down again now. That's why it's so broadly given this, so it allows teachers of whatever level or whatever area of teaching they're in to be able to use the evidence and give answers or respond in a way that matches what you do.
Yeah.
So there are that one's particularly 1.1, 2, 3, and 4. One of the things that I wanted to look at before we move on to anything else is, I'll go back and bring those up. Whoops, back again here. My mouse packed in the other day. I've got a new mouse and it's a noisy one, it clicks. So we've covered, we're up to 2.1, to have a look at 2.1. You don't need to produce any, unless you already made a good start, you don't really need to produce any work on that. I'm just leading this into next week as much as anything else, yeah?
I think I've done up to 3.1. I think I have, but I just want to confirm that I have. That's the reason I'm happy. Yeah, because that's the reason I'm really happy to go over this again, because I felt that I've done what I think was meant to be done.
Yeah.
I just want to. It's nice that to reconfirm
what
that.
I suggest is, after tonight's session, put together the first 2 learning objectives.
Yeah.
And send them to me.
Because the only reason I'm not sent them is because I think on 2.4 you just need copies of the ILP, don't you?
Yeah.
For those, and so it's just me just scanning the copies, isn't it, and sending them to you as is.
All you need to do. I'll just go over what you need to do on these, and then again, explain why it's important to identify and meet the needs of individual learners. So you respond to the initial assessment documentation that you've got. Explain what it is and what it's used for. Yeah. It's simple and straightforward. It's an explain that one. Yeah. And analyse the roles and use of initial and diagnostic assessment in agreeing individual learning goals.
Yeah.
Now, this might have been slightly out of your situation because you've not got that position, but what normally happens is that the role and use of those, the initial assessment will give you, how can I explain it easily? Right, if I look at functional skills, you will get a reading from an initial assessment on where they are in terms of English and maths, It'll be E1, E2, E3, level 1 or level 2. Or they're aiming to get to level 2 by the time they get to leaving school. So wherever they're at, it will say they're on E2, say.
Yeah.
You do the diagnostic and it will say exactly where they're up to on E2.
Right.
Between E2 and E3, they may be over halfway there. There may be specific areas that they need to improve to get to E3, and it will highlight those. And for the tutor, it then becomes extremely important because then you know what to actually teach them. You don't have to start covering things they've already done or not, already at that level. You can pick on the bits that are important. So that's looking at them, doing analysis of that, so copies of the initial assessment, any diagnostic tests, if necessary, if you've not got them, it doesn't matter, for at least 2 learners, with an explanation of the process of admission leading up to teaching. So use methods of initial assessment to agree individual learning goals with the learners. So that's your learning plan,
So with this, what I talked about, what type of initial assessments I could use, what different types of diagnostic assessments, like doing mind maps, doing assessments at each unit at the beginning of the year, before each topic, and the KWL chart, what I know, what I want to know, and what I have learned. I did that as well within it. And then
that will suffice exactly that, because it covers the same things. Yeah.
Okay.
Because on an ILP it'll say, let's say they want to do a particular course, it'll ask why you do want to do the course, what do you want to achieve from the course, and how long do you think it's going to take you to get there. So it's the same sort of process that you're going through there, yeah.
Because it felt like all the two so far, up to 2.3, it felt like I've repeated a few things in between each other. They felt very similar in certain parts
some of the things will overlap on here. This is what I said, and this is why I said I've done Unit 3 first, because there will be some exactly that you're going to be able to cross-reference straight across from work you've already completed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2.4 is your records, and explain what they are. Literally that. Yeah. Record learners' individual learning goals.
So am I explaining as well, doing a brief explanation on?
Yeah. Well, yeah. With any appendices that you add to your work, you'll just put on, you'll head that section 2.4 record learners' individual goals, and then you'll start off. Please find appendix, whatever they are, for 2 learners. These are used to do such and such a thing, and what they're there to achieve, and record. Yeah. And it's as straightforward as that, really. And then we move on to 3.1, is define a scheme of work. So with the scheme of work that you're working towards is the one you're going to use, yeah?
Yeah, I made one of those. I looked at the template you had on Moodle, and I was lucky enough that we did 2 lessons very similar. So I just sort of like, it was year 3, they were talking about measurements, and so I put down what their learning objectives were. So I just sort of copied what they did, the same plan. But it wasn't a lesson plan that I copied, it was the objectives and things.
Yeah. Well, I say, you give an overall scheme of work over a number of weeks, yeah? And then you will have a lesson plan for each session. Bit like ours, I'll send you a schedule for the next 4 or 5 weeks saying what unit we're doing, what learning objectives we're going to be doing on there. That's basically the scheme of work. And the lesson plan is each week's LO1 and 2, and then the week after it's LO2 and 3, so they overlap each other as we go along.
Okay.
So it's the same thing exactly, really, yeah. And again, a teaching and learning plan which the individual goals and leaders and curriculum requirements.
Okay.
Yeah. We got a visitor again.
Yes, he's telling me he's going to the toilet. So with a scheme of work, I just devise a scheme of work that goes over
what you're going to be doing over a number of weeks. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It'll be saying basically you'll have a number of lesson plans down from that scheme of work.
Okay.
Get you from there to there, if you know what I mean.
And then when it says the NC reference, that's the National Curriculum Reference, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, those.
Yeah. So I went on to, that was a bit of a pain. I went on to the National Curriculum site, and then 2013 or 2003, I can't remember the date. And then I did a bit of research, and I went into the lower key stage 2, and I found the subject area. So I sort of like copied and pasted a little bit of what they require into that.
You get all the code hieroglyphics then. PW stroke 3 volt. Yeah. There are some. Well, it's a number of years ago now. There was I think it was where was it? Nottingham, I think it was, college, devised a new scheme for initial assessment and diagnostics. And what it did, instead of using the rather complex national curriculum codes, it said you've got a good level 1 achievement working towards level 2, and to achieve level 2, on the diagnostic it shows that you need to use, and then what they've done is they devised 10 work groups between levels 1 and level 2, right? Right. And from the diagnostic, they would say you need to do use work group 1, 4, and 7. They didn't need to do any of the others. That meant they were well on towards level 2, but those 3 work groups if they completed those, that would lift them up to that next level if they did the test again. So that was a way of actually simplifying that for the tutor, so that you didn't have to try and decide where that was going to fit in. So yeah, there are a number of things that have tried to make that area a bit simpler.
Okay.
So I'm not going to go beyond that tonight because there are quite a few things we've discussed tonight, and there's quite a lot involved there. So as I said, what I would prefer you to do is send me what you've done. Let's say finish off. If you finished, you said you'd go up to 3.1, did you?
Yeah, because all I need to do is scan the. I didn't get a chance to do it today. Scan the ILPs. I've got 2 of those. Both students have learning needs in it, so there isn't a mainstream child within either of those. And then and that's all. You don't need the assessments, do you? Do you need the copies of those as well?
Yeah.
No, the diagnostic and initial assessment. Sorry, is cause mine are just like. Wait, I'll put. Mine are just like this, like a maths assessment.
Yeah.
Should I scan these and send this as well?
Yeah.
Do you just want the front pages of this, or should I send the whole?
No, it's the bit with the what's happening with the student, and if there are any signatures and dates on it.
That's the one.
That's the bit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only one you want then. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
What I should do is just so get you off on an even keel as well. With Unit 3, I don't think you produced any appendices for that, did you?
For Unit 3, no, I didn't produce anything for that.
I don't think you need to for that. I'm thinking back on it myself. So with this one, looking at this current job description, copy of your job description, explain with it. Will be appendix or IPP1, or whatever you want to call it. I'm just saying that. The next will be your organogram. That'll be APP2. You don't need to name them. You just give them a number. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So on your text, refer to APP. Just refer to APP1 or 2 or whatever you're talking about. Yeah. And just carry on as we go through the qualification. Yeah.
Okay.
Every time you add a new appendice, just give it the next number.
Yeah. And with this unit now, because I think I've finished on maybe page 18 or 19 for Unit 3. Should I carry this on from 19, 20, 21? Yeah,
that's the best way of doing it actually. Not everybody does. Most people start with a new set of pages for each unit, but
you have to figure out how to do it.
It's easier if you do it that way because it's then like a book.
Yeah.
You start off at page 1 and go to page, I don't know, 50, however many it is when you finish. Yeah.
Then it goes right to the end. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the best way. Just let me slow that down a minute. I'm just going to show you something now. Close that down. Put that out of the way a minute. There. Right. See, that's how it'll look when it's finished.
Yes.
My formal assessment will go in here. Yeah. It'll say your name at the top, etc. And this will go at the top of your page. Yeah. When you get it back from me with your assessment, this will be at the head of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, and you get a signature off me and the date when it's finished on there.
Okay.
So again, 1.1, purpose of the post, tasks. Yeah. This girl had a very complex role, so they don't need to write all this. This was actually, and again, she was also one of those that would write a paragraph where a sentence would do. Not complaining, that was just the start. So again, then it just moves on. 1.2, health and safety, data protection, and just writes a bit about each one, send on there as well, yeah. And then as we move through, she's put an organogram on there for their group. Now that is sideways up, basically. And then just explain what it is, right? And then LO4 is how they meet the needs on there, and that is it, yeah?
Okay.
2.1, identify meeting needs. Then she's put on an individual learning plan, yeah?
Okay.
This is one that they use, you see, yeah? So, again, learner A is in here, instead of the learner's number. So that's just to give you, an idea of how it'll formulate when it goes in.
Because on my 1.2, I've not done it heading style. I've not done a heading. I've sort of like done it as an essay style, but with things mentioned within it.
No, they need to be all separated like that.
Heading style, okay.
Yeah. So it'll come out as 1.1, 1.2. What it doesn't say is what it should say is what you need to do is put the where are we here? Let's move that over as well.
Because I just wrote about how those procedures and legislations affect my work, but instead of going on to separating them, I just mentioned what I do, and then within it, this is what I do as per this and as per that, and then explained a bit of what that was.
Yeah, but it does need to be separated like that, because what happens is I will put on the formative assessment that I'll send to you. It will have that on there.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
On the end of each section. Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's anything that I need to look at, or anything I picked up on there, I will put a message in there as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I use review for the formative assessment. Basically. Unless I have anything to say, it'll probably say good, okay, good, fine, very good. But that's not a reflection that it's just good or very good. It's just what I happen to write on that minute. What it's mainly saying is I'm accepting it.
Okay.
Yeah. Any work that I'm not accepted, it'll be a clear message in there what you need to do. Yeah?
Yes. Okay.
And then when I send it back to you, it's just a matter of complete it.
Yeah.
See, what I don't do is, before I change it to page number, this used to say not yet achieved.
Yeah, achieved NYA. Yes.
So what I do instead of writing not yet achieved, I put you a message in on what it needs to do to achieve.
Yes. Okay.
Leave that blank until you finish it, and then I sign it off. That's good.
Okay. No, that's
Are you okay with that?
Oh yeah, it's better now because I've written things about it. I think I just need to just go and tweak it a little bit.
Yeah,
just set it out better.
Just put it into some sort of plain order that you can follow through like that. That's why I showed you that one, because it works. That was one of my first learners on this course a couple of years ago, and I mean, I think if you have a look down here at the bottom. 12,424 words. I'm not expecting you to do that. Yeah, don't get worried.
But that was a very long unit as well, so I'm not surprised it's quite that high.
It is a big unit. I mean, there are 8 learning objectives, 6, 7, I think. Yes, there are. So reviewing the planning, effective viewing on practice. You've already done that in Unit 3.
Yeah.
And identify areas for improvement. You've already done that in Unit 3.
Okay, so then I can just cross-reference those two for that, couldn't I?
Just cross-reference across to that. Make sure it does exactly what you've said, yeah? So, that's basically all I wanted to show you that for.
That's brilliant, thank you.
Hold that down now. Oh, it's gone. Okay, have you any further questions before we call it an evening?
No, I think we've covered it. Just the issues that I had, the bits and bobs. I think it should be fine. So I should be okay to just scan these documents and I'll put them down as appendices. And once it changes, I'll send it over to you.
Well, that's great. Just send it across to me. I'll do a formative assessment on it, send it back, and I'll put my assessment sheet at the top. Then you know where you're going. Okay.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks for attending.
Thank
I
you.
hope my croaky voice, you heard my croaky voice all right.
That's okay. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.